Springfield's Talk 104.1. Welcome to the show. Good Tuesday, everyone. Streaming live, KSGF.com. Yep, don't like these headphones. Change my mind.
I will go get you
Change
new
my mind. No,
ones.
I'll during the break. I can use those there. Those are. Why are those plugged into that box over there anyway?
Honestly, I'm afraid to remove them because that box somehow controls our audio.
I got used to those crappy headphones. That's
Well,
what I'm accustomed
I will
to.
get mine, and you can have these ones.
No.
You're being a diva. You have
No, I'm trying to not be one by saying, no, don't worry about it. I'll just swap it out with those coming up here.
Here we are having this
Yes,
conversation.
here we are. Here we are. All right. So, hope everyone had those of you 3-day weekend that did that. Coming up, we do have a Heroes Breakfast on Friday. So, those of you that are veterans, come on out as we broadcast live Friday Scramblers, the Friday Road Show, sponsored by Shirley's Heating and Air, and you will get free breakfast. And that's how we do that thing. Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, Delta Roofing, Warrior's Journey, all making that possible this Friday from 6A to 9A. It's amazing to me the new revelations that continue to come out regarding the Biden administration. Usually when there's a book that is coming out, you get like a week, maybe 2 weeks of little tidbits of information that get dropped here and there in order to entice you into going out and buying the book. But it just seems as if this has been going on for some time. The book being released last Tuesday, and I guess Jake Tapper and the other guy, Alex Thompson, I think is his name, from Axios, just milking everything out of this they possibly can, and why not at this point? And but they're now beginning to admit that the plan, because Donald Trump is an existential threat to humanity, that it's okay to lie to the American people about the cognitive disorders of Biden, and it's okay to have unelected people running the country because this is the serious threat that we've been facing. And this is how the Democrat Party is slowly but surely trying to acclimate their supporters into believing it's okay to overturn elections, it's okay to rig elections, it is okay to run people that aren't actually going to be running whatever office it is that they may get elected to. That doesn't matter, because what is the framework? The framework is we're good, they're evil. And that's all that matters. And the fact that some of these Democrats that are coming on television networks and giving their thoughts about this and what it means and who knew what and what they should have done and so forth, they are now beginning to openly acknowledge that, yeah, but it was worth it. Because threat to democracy, which, if you haven't noticed, hasn't gone away yet. Quote, democracy. These people, they do live in a different world. You see the headlines of Jon Stewart and all of these others, and they just talk about, what, is Trump just going to destroy this whole country? I'm like, what world are you living in? What world are you living in? Destroy the country? Well, Doge. What part of the country's been... I mean, I think we've accepted the fact that there is absolutely no cutting of government, no matter how atrocious the fraud may be or how unnecessary the spending may be. Democrats will never, ever, 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 ever support any sort of cut. I mean, none whatsoever. Just not, at least right now, at this point in time, I should say that there are no cuts. And the proof of that is the fact that for all of their rhetoric and saying, well, we're not opposed to cutting, we should just do it with the scalpel. Okay, well then cut what with the scalpel? You notice they've provided absolutely nothing whatsoever? Nothing. But you look at, I'm trying to put myself in their shoes. And they talk about all of these horrific things that are occurring, how Donald Trump is destroying the country. And I guess maybe they would cite Doge. Okay, what has occurred? Explain to me where the destruction is. Even if, in much of the time, what would we do? Wow, we cut funding out of this. Okay, has the country been destroyed because of it? Where is this destruction? Some of these people live in this world of total and complete delusion. And again, the comparison of this cult-like mentality is something that each side can point to the other and say, no, you act like a cult member. No, you act like a cult member. But I can articulate, as many of you can as well, the exact behavior that we see people on the left exhibit that is synonymous with a cult member. And one of those, you have these people that live on a compound, and the rest of us are just going about our days, getting up, going to work, going to our social gatherings, going on float trips, just enjoying life. Meanwhile, they have created this world for those of you that followed the Branch Davidian, and within that compound, those people lived in a world in which the outside world was total chaos, and it was going to come to get them, and it was going to completely destroy them. Now, of course, the government sort of helped fuel their paranoia, but it didn't, like you and I, just, average people, we were going about our days. We're just living our lives. And people in cults, however, they live in this completely different world, and you can see it on full display when they talk about how Trump has destroyed the country. He's not going to rest until there's no country left. What are you talking about? Meanwhile, at the same time, we've got down in South Africa, one of the top political leaders still out there holding rallies, leading chants about killing white people. And then you've got reporters, mainstream reporters, that are still out there pretending as if none of this is happening whatsoever. No. Oh, no. Well, that's not substantiated. There's no truth to that. Again, what world are you living in? Weather in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see scattered showers throughout the day, otherwise cloudy with a high near 66. Tonight, patchy drizzle with a low around 55. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 74. And looking ahead to Thursday, we'll see 60% chance of showers with a high near 70.
Streaming live, KSGF.com. Welcome to the show, everyone. Let's start off with some audio. And this is a White House press briefing. Caroline Leavitt dealing with just the mainstream media. Now, as it's not a secret, this has been going on for some time. White farmers targeted in South Africa. I didn't realize, evidently, this has been a huge secret to the media. I wonder if they know that there are concentration camps and slavery in China. I wonder if that's news to them. Do they know that North Korea is run by a dictator? For people that are supposed to be the sources of information for the rest of us, they seem wildly detached from what is actually going on in the world. And so I didn't even realize that this was a controversial understanding that this has been going on in South Africa for some time. Of course, Trump derangement syndrome, all that has to happen is Trump like, yeah, this is bad. We probably take in this handful of refugees that are being targeted there, and then the media is going to tell us it's not true. This is the absurd questioning from a journalist during Friday's, I think it's Friday, it's Thursday or Friday.
Are you disputing that there is no...
The fact that the video showed what the president claimed it showed, because it did not show that. But even more, what I'm asking you is who at the White House...
it did show that. It showed white crosses representing people who have perished because of racial persecution.
The videos that the president shows, and what protocols are in place when there's unsubstantiated information being put out for the world and world leadership?
What's unsubstantiated about the video? The video shows crosses that represent the dead bodies of people who were racially persecuted by their government. In fact, the Associated Press, of all places, has a picture of that very monument, and the caption from the Associated Press is, "Each cross marks a white farmer who has been killed in a farm murder." So it is substantiated, not just by that video and the physical evidence that everybody saw on display in the Oval Office, but also by another outlet in this room, the Associated Press. So you should take it up with them if you believe the claim is unsubstantiated, and that's a ridiculous line of question.
Now, I suspect that she is referencing an Associated Press article prior to Trump highlighting this problem in South Africa. This seems to be, to some degree, running the course of the media really playing up Kamala Harris being the border czar until it was pointed out that she failed at being border czar, and then they ran around claiming she actually wasn't ever the border czar when they were the ones. They were the ones that were reporting that. Now, of course, they reported it to try to beef her up. It was supposed to show how credible she was as a vice president, show that she wasn't just some token pick based off of Biden's promise that regardless he would pick a woman of color. And that was the top priority for him. And so they bent over backwards to try and demonstrate that she's really a serious person. She's a border czar until that was something that Trump and the Trump campaign started to point out, and then they began doing everything they could to come, no, that's something Republicans came up with. Oh, yes, Republicans wanted to give Kamala Harris credibility during the opening days of the Biden administration, yeah. Now we've got this absurd position where you have people in the media and Democrats acting as if this is something this is modern day Holocaust denialism. Hearing that is no different than whenever you point, to videos of the liberation of the concentration camps. Well, now we don't really know that those videos are legit. I mean, we haven't validated. That could be that could be just propaganda. That is the position that the left is taking when it comes to what is going on in South Africa. These people become more unhinged. They discredit themselves to a greater degree on a daily basis. It's embarrassing that someone like that is even allowed to sit in the press briefing room of the White House. I mean, it's just almost indescribable. Now, coming up, we're going to take a quick break. Dan Bongino has announced a review of a number of quote, unsolved mysteries. One, which is just because of the scandalous nature of it, seems to be leading the headlines, and that is the cocaine found in the White House. One of the things we learned during the Biden administration is how apparently incapable some of the world's top investigators are, because some things that really should not have been that difficult to figure out, they just threw their hands up and they're like, you know what, golly gee whiz, we just can't figure this one out. It's a mystery to us. Family-owned Pinnaker Honda, some incredible deals. 0.99% financing on select certified pre-owned Hondas. Yes, that is still a deal available to you for those really low rates on a brand new 2025 Honda Accord Hybrid, 2.49%, 51 miles per gallon on that, and 2.99% financing for the new Honda CR-V Hybrid. Now, I mentioned that we have our Heroes Breakfast at Scramblers on Friday in the afternoon, should you decide you want to go check out some of the incredible vehicles they do have at Pinnaker Honda. Pizza Deck Co. will be the food truck there. They have a food truck every Friday at Pinnaker Honda on South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino announcing reviews of 3 unsolved mysteries. One of them, in which he describes as deciding to either reopen or push additional resources and investigative attention. So some of these may still be open to some degree, some of these closed, but they say we're going to have another look at this. One's cocaine in the White House. And this idea that, this is what we've been told, and I don't know, maybe this is the case, that some person can smuggle in a white powdery substance into the White House and no one is able to stop them or find out who did it after the fact. Now, that seems pretty crazy to me. And I would argue that, let's say we are expected to believe that that is the case, there should have been an investigation into how it is that somebody is able to do that. You know, these things happen too often in which there is an investigation over something that occurs. And then when they aren't able to figure out, there's no investigation as to why they can't figure this stuff out. To me, that's pretty important. Like, what system in place allows for a white, powdery, illegal substance to get in the White House without any ability to figure out who it was? Now, the other possibility here is that they know exactly who it was, but they were covering for the Biden administration. One of the other 3 that Dan Bongino specifically noted was the leak of the draft for the Supreme Court's opinion overturning Roe v. Wade. Pretty much everyone recognizes why this was done, and it was to try and intimidate some of the judges into switching their opinions. We saw, of course, Chuck Schumer, leader of the Democrats in the Senate, whip up a frenzy on the Supreme Court steps, specifically calling out Kavanaugh, Gorsuch as well, saying you won't know what hit you. You're going to, face a whirlwind if you dare touch Roe v. Wade. And then it got leaked out that they were, in fact, touching it, and it was after that there was an assassination attempt on Kavanaugh. It doesn't take a brainiac in order to connect those dots. And yet here, once again, totally incapable of figuring out who it was. So we're told. I have a very difficult time believing that they couldn't figure it out. I suspect they know exactly who it was. And I suspect that it was somebody high up enough, even perhaps a Supreme Court justice, or if a Supreme Court justice did not do it him or herself, was directly responsible for the person doing it, and they rationalized keeping it covered up, telling themselves as the court that the reputation of the court, that the trust of the American people in the court is far more important than holding the person accountable. Because after all, if the American people do not trust the court, then that is a great stain on our nation, and that is one of the three branches of government, and it's very important for people to have full faith in the court. And so while, yes, there was an illegal act that occurred because of that leaking, and it was horrifically poor judgment and even against the law, the greater damage would be done by revealing how one of the justices, perhaps, or at the direction of one of the justices, that leak took place. I don't care. I don't care who it is. I think we need to know. And people need to be held accountable. Because part of the effort here, if there is the rationalizing that, well, if we reveal what really happened, people are going to lose faith in the institution. Well, how about the institution of the FBI? They can't seem to figure any of this stuff out, which leads to the third instance that that Dan Bongino noted here, and that is the infamous pipe bomb, which actually is plural. There were the pipe bombs put outside the Democrat and Republican National Committee shortly before the January 6th incident at the Capitol. The DNC headquarters, which at one point Kamala Harris was actually occupying. And without rehashing through all of it, most of you are fully aware that it's just extremely suspicious. The releasing of footage, arguably doctored footage, and once again, a federal government that seems to have no problem carrying out a nationwide SWAT event to pick up any and every person that was just outside the Capitol on January 6th, but and using geo-tracking, utilizing social media, utilizing all sorts of technology in order to demonstrate evidence that people were in the Capitol on January 6th. But a person or persons that planted pipe bombs, somehow that or those individuals they can't track down. Can't figure that one out somehow. That, of course, given the level of involvement that the FBI had at trying to, or at the very least, they've acknowledged that they were there part of January 6th, though they're still very cagey about exactly who and exactly what was being done. It isn't beyond the realm of possibilities that our own government was also involved in planting those pipe bombs. Which would, of course, explain why it is that they can't find the person who's responsible. We'll see if something comes of this. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today, we'll see scattered showers throughout the day, otherwise cloudy with a high near 66. Tonight, patchy drizzle with a low around 55. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 74. And looking ahead to Thursday, we'll see a 60% chance of showers throughout the day with a high near 70.
Real quick, a review from Liz regarding Emily Johnson House Theory Realty. Emily was amazing to work with as a first-time home buyer trying to navigate the complex, fast-paced market. Emily did a wonderful job in helping us find the perfect home and stay positive, even in a very competitive seller's market. She was professional, knowledgeable, didn't pressure us to look at houses that would not work or that went over our budget. We absolutely plan on working with her again if we ever need a realtor. Cannot recommend her enough. I mean, that is similar to reviews all over the place. Kayla's saying, working with Emily, absolute pleasure start to finish. We have the opportunity to both buy and sell properties with House Theory help, and each experience exceeded our expectation. The deep knowledge of the market, strategic insight, and keen eye for value truly made a difference every step of the way. Beyond that experience, they were a genuine delight to work with, professional, responsive, and always looking out for our best interest. And that is what you get when it comes to buying a home, selling a home. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Regarding the social media post from Deputy Director of the FBI, Dan Bongino, that there were 3 cases that they were going to reopen and or push additional resources to, one of which is the cocaine in the White House, one of which is the illegal leaking of the Roe v. Wade overturning, and then the final of the 3, the pipe bomb situation from January 6th. And frankly, I think the cocaine in the White House is probably the least amount of interest to people, largely because we know that whether it's Hunter or, that whole family, I just don't think at this point, and I'm not saying that it should not be investigated, especially if you had something illegal occurring and people in the highest levels of law enforcement covering it up for political purposes. But on the scale of things that we look back in retrospect as extremely worrisome in the executive office, cocaine, that says a lot for an administration. When that's really low down there, like of all the offenses, all the scams, you're like, oh yeah, cocaine, well, this is an administration that topless trans people run around on the lawn of the White House. And, of course, we don't know who is in charge. So that seems to be the least concerning. I think there is this is a precarious time for the FBI. And I say that because of the fact that just last week, making headlines, you had Patel and Bongino that were dismissing the belief that many Americans have that Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself. Or that he did kill himself, rather. Or the belief that he did not. And both Kash Patel, director of the FBI, and Deputy Director Dan Bongino both said, hey, we've seen the file. And trust us, he killed himself. Now, this is something Glenn Beck has talked about, and he noted that he trusts them, but he also just doesn't believe it. And you may think, well, that seems to be a bit of a contradiction, but I think that a good point was made to some degree, that it was the main focus of Beck's point here. Dan Bongino and Kash Patel have asserted regarding Epstein that he killed himself, and they are putting it out there, and I don't want to say expecting it to be believed based on their credibility, but they are attaching it to their credibility. Patel saying, hey, I've been in this business a long time. Dan Bongino saying, hey, I've seen all the evidence. I've seen the files. Trust me. Now, I understand, particularly somebody like Dan Bongino, that thinks that that should be enough because he has demonstrated he is a trustworthy individual. But what we cannot do is expect the American people any longer to simply say, trust me. Even if you are completely trustworthy, we have to stop that. That has become a very big problem in this country in which people trust the people that they like. And some of those people are trustworthy, without a doubt. I suspect Dan Bongino is one of those people. But we have to reset this standard that we have in this country of not just trusting somebody because they say, trust me. Oh, I've seen the evidence. And since I've seen the evidence, then you can just trust me. No. We need to see it. That being said, I also recognize that if the evidence was presented and the evidence showed somehow that he killed himself, there would still be people, and I don't know, maybe I'd be one of them that's like, well, yeah, but you can fake the evidence. But this is the problem, that this is not a problem of a conspiratorial-minded population. This is a problem of having a government that has demonstrated that they will lie every which way but Thursday. They will manipulate. They will try and rig elections. They will tell you whatever it is, no matter how ridiculous it is and how detached from reality it is. That is why so many Americans do not trust these institutions. Now, the reason that I say that the FBI is in kind of a precarious situation right now, this announcement that Bongino made, that the FBI is going to put renewed look or reopen citing these three cases specifically. If nothing comes of them, I think that is going to be very, very, very damaging to the idea that the FBI can be turned around. Because it's fair to say a lot of Americans already feel as if, again, regardless of what Patel and Bongino say, that Epstein, that he did not kill himself, that he was murdered. And I think oftentimes people will tell themselves, well, the evidence was cooked, and that's what Bongino and Patel saw. They saw fake evidence, and so they've been tricked too. But aside from that, there is this hope that people will be held accountable for things. There is this hope that that institution can be turned around slowly, albeit, but turned around nonetheless. But if after the announcement that, hey, trust us, Epstein killed himself, if subsequent to that, these other investigations, cocaine in the White House, which again, I don't think is that big of a deal to a lot of people. But if that turns out, hey, nope, we couldn't find anything. The pipe bomb, nope, we can't find anything out about that. The leaking of Roe v. Wade, nope, we can't find out about that. I think a lot of people are going to lose, completely severed away from any hope that any of these people that have been part of this incredibly corrupt system will ever be held accountable. And I'm not faulting the people in charge. I don't know, perhaps these are cases that legitimately evidence is destroyed. I mean, I suspect that any of these scenarios, any of these cases, if you will, if in fact the reason we did not learn the truth is because the people who were involved in some capacity with investigating these particular cases were also responsible for making it, quote, go away, I doubt that they left a lot of evidence around. And there's only so much you can do if evidence disappears. This is the precarious nature of announcing that there's going to be a renewed look at this, because the focus is going to go back on these particular cases, and if nothing comes of them, that's just going to really take the wind out of the sails, I think, for a lot of Americans who felt as if we're finally going to start learning some of the truth behind many of these cases. But time will tell. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. And some of your Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line messages regarding Epstein. I trust he did kill himself, but everything was provided to him to do it to himself. No security camera, no suicide watch. Another saying, I'm not trusting them or Bondi until they do. That is, I presuming, get some meaningful resolution regarding a number of the cases. Dan Bongino announcing that they were going to do a renewed push into the cocaine into the White House, the Roe v. Wade leaking, and then the pipe bombs. And, of course, this comes on the heels of their declaration that they've seen the evidence and Jeffrey Epstein did kill himself. Another saying it's not the fact that he committed suicide so much as he was not watched, so he was able to intentionally negligent, perhaps. And if they can't find the truth about the 3 investigations, it would be good to explain why. That's absolutely true. Whether evidence was destroyed, in which case someone should be prosecuted, or lack of evidence, just the truth would be nice. You know, on the Epstein, not to sit and rehash the Epstein situation, but I do believe that that is very plausible, that Epstein was allowed to commit suicide, but I believe that there's a very good chance he was prompted. And perhaps the life of his longtime girlfriend / partner, Ghislaine, was put in the balance. He may have been told in no uncertain terms, we are going to destroy her, maybe even kill her, unless you kill yourself. One of the arguments that I thought was somewhat interesting, supporting the suicide claim, that he committed suicide, was that, well, he had, threatened to kill himself, but he was taken off of suicide watch. So there were those 2 conflicting reports there, and they tried to play it off like, well, he was suicidal. Well, then why was he taken off suicide watch? Unless, again, he was prompted to. We've seen that portrayed in film before, and I'm sure it's happened in real life where somebody is told, you want to save your family, you want to save this person that is important to you, then you're going to end this now. You're going to take your own life, and then we're going to protect this person for you. The obvious question is, well, how do you know? How does that person know? And that is a question that a person in that situation might ask. How do I know? And the response probably would be, well, you don't, but you do know what will happen if you don't. You know that. I have always found it to be unusual that she sits in prison, and I forget how long she's even been sentenced, when she clearly knows the names of all of these high-profile, powerful people. We talk so much about wanting the list. She's a list. She's got the list in her head. Now, it may not be absolutely every person, but she was his right-hand gal. And while you and I, we continue to talk about wanting to see this list, she has it in her head. She knows. Doesn't that seem unusual that somebody that has so much knowledge, arguably, to me it seems inconceivable she doesn't, about all of these individuals, that there's never even been talk about her providing that information in order to get a lesser sentence, unless these are things that I somehow missed. But it just seems strange to me that she sits in prison with that very valuable knowledge. And it just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't jive to me. And it just, again, really suggests that she has been given some extremely powerful incentive to keep her mouth shut. And perhaps part of that was, you saw what we were able to get your buddy Jeffrey to do. Unless you want to be next, you'll keep your mouth shut. Because whatever extremely powerful people that are caught up in that entire scandal, she obviously knows about. So she knows. And I've always thought that was just one of the more, I don't know, intriguing aspects of all of this, given the knowledge that she would have. That it was just like, oh, there's a little case, and now she's off in prison somewhere, and nobody hears from her. Very unusual. To me, anyhow. Coming up, I want to play some audio from Alex Thompson, Jake Tapper's co-author on their new book, Biden Book. And he was on Fox News Sunday with Shannon Bream on Sunday, and he was discussing what the plan was if Biden got elected president. I mean, that's kind of an interesting thought, right? What would they have done? I mean, the guy clearly was incapable of running the country at the end of his presidency. So 4 years? What was the plan? He explains that. Coming up next, I'm Nick Reed. Living in the Ozarks, it's a great place to live if you like to spend time outdoors. And if you're a homeowner, you have outdoor space in your backyard. I happen to love, I always have, living in this part of the country just because of the weather. I like it. I like the 4 seasons. And to have that real estate, even if it's just, a quarter of an acre, that is very valuable. If you ever looked at the cost of lots, yet we do so little with them so often, and you can have your outdoor oasis so that whether you are out, you're canoeing, you're floating, you're hiking, or you are wanting to enjoy the outdoors in your own home, your backyard oasis, Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, they can do it for you. They are absolutely premier. They're not your standard run-of-the-mill, hey, we do 12 different jobs and we've got rotating crews and at any given time, half the crew's being trained by the other half before they rotate out. These are very long-term experts that are very, very top of the line when it comes to doing this sort of work, the designing, the implementation, and premier products as well, stuff that you can't buy yourself just at the big box store. You can also get estimates on costs. Just give you a ballpark idea so you know what it is that your investment level is going to be to massively improve the quality of your home. HunterHardscapes.com is their website, and you can always visit KSGF.com under Nick's endorsements. All right, so let's play a little bit of audio here. This is from Sunday. And Shannon Bream was hosting Fox News Sunday. Alex Thompson, the co-author, along with Jake Tapper of the new Biden book. And the discussion leads to, well, what was the plan? So let's just say Biden stuck with it. They pulled off this great hoax, and he got elected for another 4 years. What was that presidency going to be like?
You quote a longtime Biden aide basically admitting he shouldn't be running again. They said to you on page 85, he just had to win, and then he could disappear for 4 years. He'd only have to show proof of life every once in a while. His aides could pick up the slack. Who would have been running the White House in a second Biden term?
This person went on to say that when you're voting for a president, you're voting for the aides around him. But these aides were not even Senate confirmed aides. These are White House aides. These were unelected people. And one of the things that really, I think, comes out in our reporting here is that if you believe, and I think a lot of these people do sincerely believe, that Donald Trump was and is an existential threat to democracy, you can rationalize anything, including sometimes doing undemocratic things, which I think is what this person is talking about.
Destroy democracy to save it. Now, two things here. One, these are the same people that spent weeks going on and on about Elon Musk isn't even elected. Elon Musk was hired by the President of the United States to do a job, which is why he was able to do it. He wasn't hired to make presidential decisions, to perhaps pardon people or sign things into law or issue executive orders. And, of course, he didn't do any of those things. But for a political party that just went on and on about it being a danger to democracy because Elon Musk was an unelected official supporting an individual running for president that was known to some degree, wasn't even planning on being president if he got elected. That you would have these individuals, most of which their names aren't known to the average American, that wouldn't be executing things on behalf of the president, but would be, according to these Democrat insiders, acting as president, making presidential decisions, signing bills into law, signing executive orders. And when you have an auto pin, that becomes very easy. All you have to do is push a little button in, a pardon here, a pardon there, pardon everywhere. And this is the level of dishonesty in the Democrat Party and in the media, to just spend weeks and months going apoplectic over Elon Musk, all masquerading it as some sort of danger to democracy because he wasn't, quote, elected. Meanwhile, when it's revealed within the Biden administration, they weren't planning on disappearing him. He gets elected, just go shove him in a room somewhere, put him on the beach somewhere, don't worry, we'll run the country. And that is almost dismissed. Like, well, I mean, but it didn't happen, so, we'll just live for another day. At least Alex Thompson acknowledges here that Democrats increasingly are dismissive of elections and have no respect for the office or the voice of the people. This is the other more worrisome component to this, and it is the increasing comfortable nature in which the Democrats are becoming with making elections irrelevant. Whether it is overturning their own elections, trying to throw Republicans off the ballots or Democrats in primaries, or just running someone with the plan that will shove them off to the side if they win and have a bunch of unelected people run the country. Got a Heroes Breakfast coming up on Friday. If you're a veteran and you come by as we broadcast live from Scramblers on Friday, then you are going to get breakfast thanks to Scramblers, the Warrior's Journey, Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, and Delta Roofing all coming together. Still, though it's been 3, maybe even 4 weeks now, we continue to get information from Alex Thompson and Jake Tapper on what was going on behind the scenes with the Biden administration. And it's revealing in terms of the details, but it's not revealing in terms of the cognitive decline. And Democrats are trying to conflate the two. It's like watching a play and you see out on stage and you can tell things are not going well. And so behind the scenes, behind the stage, it's got to be real chaotic back there. Well, and when you find out that it is, this isn't a surprise or revelation because you see what's playing out on the stage itself. And so you're like, this play is going horribly wrong. Clearly, they're frantic backstage right now. They're, going over whatever they're doing. It isn't pretty back there because what is playing out on stage is a horrific train wreck right before our very eyes. And that was what the Biden administration was. We all saw it happening. And so obviously we know that behind closed doors, there was clearly a recognition that there had to be constant cleanups. But what has happened is you have Alex Thompson and Jake Tapper trying to conflate the two, act as if these detailed revelations mean that for the first time we've been learning that Biden had cognitive issues, and they're trying to excuse themselves in that capacity as well. Alex Thompson was on with Shannon Bream and on Sunday, and he said that the plan was, according to people in the White House, if they were able to get him elected, just kind of do away with him, send him off somewhere, and then people just would kind of be president. You would have these random people in the White House that would be making the decisions that are supposed to be made by the President of the United States. And he noted that, he said, this is the quote, "I think a lot of these people do sincerely believe Donald Trump was and is an existential threat to democracy. You can rationalize anything, including sometimes doing undemocratic things, which I think is what this person is talking about." Now, slowly but surely, the Democrats are revealing themselves. Many of us have known the way that they operate for some time, but what happens with Democrats is at first they deny it, then they justify it. So anytime they are accused of, let's say, for example, censorship, and the administration utilizing the federal government in order to censor information they did not like or agree with, whether that was Hunter Biden stuff or COVID stuff, anything and everything that they didn't care for. Now, of course, they denied it forever until it became undeniably true. Then they justify it, tell us why it was necessary. Same thing with spying on the Trump campaign. I still remember, as do many of you, I'm sure, when Trump first declared that his, the Trump Towers had been bugged and that he was being spied on, the mouthpieces for the Democrat Party, the Jimmy Kimmels and these others, were out there mocking him as being a conspiracy theorist, making claims without any evidence whatsoever that his campaign was being investigated, that he was being spied on by these people. Well, of course, we would learn that that turned out to be exactly true. Then what do? They don't apologize. They don't say, oh, gosh, you caught us lying. They then justify it. That should be the motto for the Democrat Party. First deny, then justify. And so we spent the entire campaign and even post-campaign to some degree being lied to about what it was that everyone knew about Joe Biden. It's evolving into justifying it. And that justifying it, I think one of the first real declarations of it, you heard from Alex Thompson there, and according to his source that, hey, well, Trump is an existential threat, so we had to do it. they are also beginning to slowly, and some of you Democrats listening right now, they will assimilate you into supporting rigging elections openly and or just throwing political opposition off the ballot or canceling elections altogether or just overturning the elections. And some of you say, they'll never do that, and I'll never support that. So you deny it now, but you will justify it. You will justify that it has to be done in order to save democracy. Yeah, that's not how that works. In a free society, in a republic, you don't get to tell people they can have elections unless you don't like the outcome, and then they get overturned. If that's the case, we should just not even bother spending tax dollars to run elections. There was another interview, Sam Harris. He is a left-wing author and a neuroscientist. And he was on having a discussion, I believe this was even with Jake Tapper. And he is, the lead up to what he's talking about here is that he had convinced himself that Joe Biden's problems weren't neurological. As an expert, he was one of these neuroscientist experts that would come out as an expert and say he just has a stutter, see, that he doesn't have any actual problems with his brain. It's just a communication issue. Well, he's now admitting that, in fact, maybe, of course, I was wrong and the critics were right.
Because of how effective this cover-up was, I no longer believe that to have been true, right? I think it's quite possible that he was just checked out to a degree that I did not suspect at the time. But to close the loop on this whole scandal, even that is preferable to me and to, I think, many Democrats than having someone who we consider to be genuinely evil, genuinely 100% purposed to serving himself in the office of the presidency. I would rather have a president in a coma where the duties of the presidency are executed by a committee of just normal people, right? So that's the choice that many of us believe was before us, and so therefore, not much materially changes once you reveal just how insane and despicable this cover-up of Biden's infirmities actually
But Sam,
was.
Now, the person interviewing would say, yeah, but that's not what we were told. We were told he was fine. But to the point of this left-wing neuroscientist and author, this is the rationalization that Alex Thompson was talking about, that you're seeing on the left. Well, we had to do it. Lying about it, rigging elections, trying to have Trump thrown off the ballot, whatever we have to do, it's really worth it because he's evil. This result is why Democrats have pivoted away from arguing that their policies are best for the American people to just telling you people who are opposed to us are bad people. They are Nazis. They are lovers of Hitler. They are evil. That way, you are just a bad person if you support this. So you just support the Democrats. It doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter. I mean, listen to his argument here. It doesn't even matter if the person running for president has the cognitive ability to be president because he's not the evil one. If you go back and you look in history at political parties and organizations that simply argue, yeah, those guys are evil, that doesn't ever turn out well. Hasn't yet. In fact, generally when that occurs and the outcome lays before us, we say things like never again. Yet here we are. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see scattered showers throughout the day, otherwise cloudy with a high near 66. Tonight, patchy drizzle with a low around 55. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 74. And looking ahead to Thursday, a 60% chance of showers with a high near 70.
I want a great homeloan.com. Any home loan needs you may need, or just even advice regarding the home loan you currently have. Let's say, for example, you owe $10,000 on your house. I mean, you've got all that equity into it, and you're almost there to the finish line, and someone in the family dies, or maybe you sell off something and you end up with that cash. Should you go ahead and pay it off? There may be reasons to. There may be reasons not to. The Carrickers and their team are very knowledgeable in all of those areas. Refinancing. Well, I'm at 3.25%, and why would I refinance when it's, interest rates are 7 or whatever the percentage is now? There may be reasons based off your particular situation that it's a good idea to do that. It may be awful for you to do. It's going to depend on your circumstances, but that they're there for that so much. For a lot of people, that is just as, if not more important than the process itself. And so don't just think they're there once you decide you want to refinance or a home loan, but to help you make that decision as well. And their contact info is at iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. Getting rid of people running as opposition is not a new thing for Democrats. Obama, when running for his first 2 elections in Illinois, forced out opposition candidates here locally in Springfield. Even in local races, individuals have been forced out. It has been going on quietly for decades, hidden, downplayed, and justified by a deceptive media that portrays potential candidates as bad people who deserve it. And there is truth to this. Obama's entire rise was based off having people thrown off the ballot. In fact, one of those races he lost, he was running for Congress before he ran for the U.S. Senate, and he was running up against a candidate backed by the Clintons, and there was an attempt to have him thrown off the ballot. They've done some pretty depraved things. This isn't uncommon, and it's not just Republicans. They went to court to try to have RFK Jr. thrown off ballots. They went to court to have Cornel West thrown off ballots, a black man. This was during the last presidential election. You had the Democrat Party going to court to try to have the black man thrown off the ballot. They tried to have Jill Stein thrown off the ballot in states that it was strategic for them, strategically advantageous if they had him thrown off. Ironically, in Wisconsin, when RFK Jr., after he endorsed Donald Trump and he went to remove his name from the ballot, Democrats tried to force him to stay on it because they thought that it would help Kamala Harris and hurt Trump. It's all about rigging for them. Look at their own elections. Democrats, this is the somewhat humorous thing about it, Democrats are victims of their own party as much as Republicans are. Perhaps even more. You look at some of these areas of the country in which Republicans never win, the crappiest parts of the country, of course. You get these blue counties and these blue cities, and Democrats are always screwing each other over when it comes to these different races. So, they get it as well. It's just always at the hands of the Democrats. And this isn't, it's not disputable. Was it Colorado? Was one of the states that just determined, people's vote shouldn't count. We're going to have Trump thrown off the ballot until the Supreme Court stepped in. It's like, yeah, you can't really do that. You can't have people thrown off the ballot just because you don't like them. Not how it works. There's been an interesting development given that Trump has, in the last election, he won the popular vote as well as the Electoral College. And that is one state, Democrat-run state, Maine, has decided maybe they should not be part of the national popular vote interstate compact after all. Now, if you're not familiar with this is a way that Democrats have been trying to circumvent the way that our elections are held. And saying that if there are enough states that sign on to it, the way that the people in their state vote will be thrown out and instead go to the winner of the popular vote. So let's say, for example, Maine. And Maine has passed this, as have a number of other states. And if it kicks in, which it won't kick in until the numbers fit for them, but let's say Maine and you have Donald Trump win Maine or a Republican win Maine, but the popular vote, because of, cities like Chicago and Boston and Los Angeles and these other blue areas of the country vote for the Democrat, then what the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact says is that Maine, having been part of it, will overturn the way that their voters voted and instead vote with the national popular vote. So it's a compact that disenfranchises their own voters unless they vote the way that they want them to vote. Again, this is the party of democracy. Well, Democrats are beginning to look at the landscape and recognize that popular vote may not be a lock-in for them all of the time. Because of the last number of elections prior to this most recent one, Democrats were feeling pretty confident, because they run the machinery in these heavily populated cities, that they would never lose a popular vote again. Well, now that they have, at least some Democrats in Maine are like, maybe we should back off of this whole national vote thing. By the way, Lincoln Huff has been an open supporter of this national popular vote. The liberal dream of circumventing the Electoral College might be crumbling faster than anyone expected. Maine, one of the 17 states that joined the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, is now poised to become the first state to exit the agreement. See, because it doesn't work they're afraid it won't work the way they want it to. These people have no shame. None. What happened to one person, one vote? What happened to all of the virtue signaling regarding the national popular vote, that's the way it should be in a democracy, unless you think it's not going to work out in your favor, evidently. Maine poised to become the first state to exit the agreement, and it's sending shockwaves through the left-wing coalition that thought they'd found a clever workaround to the Constitution. Last year, Maine opted to join the compact, which would award all participating states electoral votes to whomever wins the national popular vote, if necessary, overturning the vote of their own voters. But now the state's having serious second thoughts. The Maine House passed a bipartisan bill on Tuesday to withdraw from the compact, and it's headed to the state Senate. I mean, you got to give it to them. The level of arrogance and the fact they don't even try to hide the rig job. The best part about and I don't know whether other states will follow, but the best part about seeing Democrats slowly, quietly try to backtrack on this is that they always attached virtue to it. I mean, they couldn't say, well, obviously, we know why we're doing this. It's because we want Democrats to win every future election, and that's what's going to happen with the national vote. They couldn't say that, so they painted it as somehow virtuous, that one person, one vote. The system is built in racism. This is what we're told by the Democrat Party, that the electoral system, the way that we select the President of the United States, is built in racism. It's racist in and of itself. Oh, really? Now that they're trying to back away from it, I suppose it's not nearly as virtuous, this national popular vote, as they like to portray. So obvious. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Have you missed any of the show? Fear not. We do have the podcast section at KSGF.com, the KSGF app. There is Spotify, there's iTunes, and we are on YouTube, so you can watch the show, and those stay archived as well if that's the way you prefer to consume the program. We've got a traffic update. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see scattered showers throughout the day, otherwise cloudy skies with a high near 66. Tonight, patchy drizzle with a low around 55. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 74. And looking at to Thursday, we'll see a 60% chance of showers with a high near 70. And I had a listener reach out to me last week to share their experience with Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, with all of the rain, this listener was telling me that they had a leak develop and they were very stressed out because at that time we had more storms that were scheduled in the forecast. But they called Josh, he came out ASAP, and they came up with the best solution, which happened to be just a simple roof repair. And before that conversation ended, the listener told me that they just love to support businesses that support us, and they were just so thankful to know someone that was going to help them because it was a very stressful situation for them. And I wanted to share that with you in case today or tomorrow, with all of the rain that is moving through, if you are in that same situation, just remember the Pyramid Roofing Company, whether you need a whole new roof or just a simple roof repair. Now, you can schedule that free roof inspection today, and you can find all of that contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
The New York Times has a report which is not unlike a number of other reports regarding the Democrat Party's attempt to try and figure out why it is that an increasing number of Americans don't like them. This one is targeting men in particular, and the efforts to apparently spend upwards of $20 million just to figure out men. I mean, you may want to start with the ability to define one. When, as a political party, and I mean this in all seriousness, when you argue that a man and a woman is just whatever a person wants, just that it's up for grabs, then you can't try and figure out what a man is. Because, see, this is the contradiction, this is the conflict of the ideology and their quest, the ideology that man is whatever somebody wants it to be. Well, then when you say we have to figure out what is a man, but on the other hand, you claim it's whatever a person wants to be, these things don't jive. According to the New York Times, for now, Democratic donors and strategists have been gathering at luxury hotels to discuss how to win back working-class voters, commissioning new projects that can read like anthropological studies of people from faraway places. The prospectus for one new $20 million effort obtained by the Times aims to reverse the erosion of Democratic support among young men, especially online. It is codenamed SAM, short for Speaking with American Men, a strategic plan, and promises investment to, quote, study the syntax, language, and context that gains attention and virality in these spaces. It recommends buying advertisements and video games, among other things. These people act like they just discovered men in some sort of faraway jungle. You see those every so often. Like somebody will be flying over a jungled area, or they'll have a drone, and then there's this tribe that gets discovered that has apparently never been discovered before, and they've never had contact with the outside world. This is how they're describing trying to figure out just guys. Just guys. In one instance, the Times continues, liberal super PAC Future Forward hosted a gathering in the Ritz-Carlton. Now, again, this is... they're trying to gather to help better understand how to win back working class people. So where is it that they decide to do this? Ritz-Carlton Resort in wealthy Half Moon Bay, California, to apprise donors of what went wrong in 2024. Prominent figures such as California Governor Gavin Newsom and Kentucky Governor Andy Beshears were reported to be in attendance. Some of the elite gatherings featured appetizers like short rib tostones, mini lobster rolls, beef tenderloin, and other expensive hors d'oeuvres, according to reporting from the New York Times. I'm not saying that you have to live the life of working class people in order to understand them. I think Trump clearly demonstrates that. He does not live the life of the average person. But he gets them. And I just the imagery that the New York Times is painting here of the opulent food offerings that they are presenting for themselves as they try to figure out the working guy it stands in such contrast to Trump working the drive-thru at McDonald's. During his first term, in which it was some college football team he had at the White House, and what did he have? He had Big Macs and fries, and he was mocked for it. He was mocked as if a bunch of college-aged football players would rather sit around some 80-foot-long hoity-toity table with 8 different forks and 20 different spoons and being served food that can't even be pronounced. These people, on one hand, at least there is an acknowledgement that they have no idea what the average working guy is about. They have no idea how we talk to each other, what is important to us culturally. Now, some have suggested, here's a novel idea, why don't you just go hang out with some of these people? Go spend time with them. Figure out a way to integrate yourself into a culture that you're trying to figure out, instead of, and this is such an elitist approach, all gathering together and talking amongst yourselves, scratching your heads, trying to figure out what makes the average man a man. Here's the real problem that the Democrat Party faces when it comes to this guy problem. They have cultivated a culture of hatred towards everything that makes a guy a guy. They developed the term toxic masculinity. They developed the term mansplaining, to where even helping someone out with information becomes a bad thing if you're a guy. The things that guys like, they rail on, they mock. And it's because they have a genuine distaste for those things. And they have a genuine distaste for those people. And I don't think they've really rectified this reality here, that the people they are trying to, quote, figure out, you don't like them. You see them as having something wrong with them. And here's how I suspect that this will all play out. You are going to have, all of this money spent trying to figure out, and then they're going to try to fake it, but not really communicate with guys, with men, in the arena of what really matters to them, because to the Democrats, those are bad things. And so they will instead try and figure out, okay, the average man, which is toxic, which tries to mansplain, which is just, the essential caveman, and they don't really have anything beneficial to offer society. We have to figure out how it is to convince them that we are right. It's not about listening to them. It's about how can we change the way that we are perceived. Essentially, when you boil it down, how can we trick guys into voting for us? Just like how can we trick Americans into voting for Joe Biden? until that became clear they could not do it. And then it was, how do we trick Kamala Harris, or guys and people just to vote for Kamala Harris? How do we trick them into believing that she's not just some generator of word salads and that she's actually an intellectual individual? The Democrat Party, it is almost constantly full speed ahead about tricking people into supporting them. The amount of time and effort they spend trying to reposition themselves, remarket themselves, find podcasters that will be a good representation of them, figuring out what men are and what men like. The amount of time and effort and money they spend trying to figure out how to trick people into supporting them is a pretty amazing thing. I would truly love to think of it. I know not everyone saw the Matt Walsh film that he did. What was it called? I Am Racist. Isn't that the one? Yeah, I Am Racist.
So.
You watch that, you see what these Democrats, and I'm not talking necessarily about the average Democrat voter, that your neighbor or your mom or dad or, the old school Democrats. I'm talking about the elites that run the party, the people who are trying to figure this out. Watch I Am Racist, the Matt Walsh film, and you'll see their mindset. Can you imagine them ever truly, genuinely having an understanding and an appreciation for what the average person finds important, and particularly an average guy? They will never accept that. Of course, then you throw in the mix, the fact that these guys are just flat out evil. And you're never, you don't like us. You have a hatred for us. It's an irrational hatred. And you have determined that you believe we cannot coexist with one another. And as long as you're that close-minded, all of the research projects in the world, all of the faking, all of the advertising through video games isn't going to do you a bit of good. What they will end up doing is trying to convince men that you and I, that we're just wrong. It'll be similar to the approach it's a much, smaller specific example, but when Obama just eventually told black men, well, if you don't support Kamala, you're misogynistic. That's where they always go. They try to shame you into supporting them. And I imagine that's what this money will translate into, them trying to determine how to best shame men into abandoning their culture, their principles, their livelihoods, and instead deciding that, yeah, we want to be over there on that side. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. you see this video of French President Emmanuel Macron?
Is this the one where there was some shoving?
His wife like hits him in the face.
Oh.
Have you seen the video?
No, so I heard Red Eye talking about it, but I didn't see the actual
Gotta
video.
see the video of it.
They made it sound like it was just a little shove.
Well, in the face like this.
Oh.
You have to watch.
I don't know. I just thought it was like the chest area.
No, all right. I'll paint as best I can the visuals. We'll get it up so you can see it. And part of what has made this worse is at first they tried to deny that it was an authentic video, but then that became undeniable. And whatever I guess the French version of Air Force One lands it somewhere. And the camera, you know how that works. The plane lands and the door is opening and then the camera is fixed on that door on the plane. And you see, I don't know, some workers, they're moving about. And then you see Macron and you see his profile. And he is looking at or talking with someone that you can't see because they're sort of behind what I would consider that. All right, in a regular commercial plane, you know, where the bathrooms there are before the cockpit, that is, you know, just for proximity's sake, where the person is he's talking to, and apparently it's his wife. And it's not really a slap, it's sort of a slap push across his face. And when that happens, it spins his head so he sees out that plane door and immediately sees the cameras there. And so he just sort of like, hey, you know, kind of like just tries to brush it off. And then he, you know, sort of walks off camera towards his wife. And then they get off the plane. But, I mean, it was not, I mean, it's not something that can be dismissed as playful. Now, Le Monde reported that Macron's office initially denied the authenticity of the images. Now, how you thought you were going to get away with that, I don't know. This isn't like you were on a hotel balcony somewhere or on a yacht out in the middle of the ocean and there's a telephoto lens that is said to take a picture of her smacking you. This was clearly, and I don't know if this was in official capacity, but, I mean, the camera, there were people there. I mean, this is just not the sort of setting that one could claim didn't actually really happen. But apparently they tried to claim that this was not authentic, these photos, these videos. But then, of course, they were confirmed as genuine. A close associate of the president, cited anonymously by the AFP, later described the incident as a couple's harmless squabble. Another member of his entourage downplayed the significance of the incidents. Quote, it was a moment when the president and his wife were decompressing one last time before the start of the trip by joking around. Oh, that's what that looks like? It's a moment of togetherness. I mean, wouldn't it be nice if just once somebody's like, yeah, you know what? She's hot-tempered and she hit him. Maybe shouldn't have done it. A lot of times couples do things behind closed doors. They say things, they do things that they obviously wish the public wouldn't see, and those was one of those moments. I'm sure most people can understand this. It's this just lying about things that are so obviously a lie. Quote, it was a moment of togetherness. No more was needed to feed the mills of the conspiracy theorists. What conspiracy? She hit him in the face. This is where these elected officials and the people who surround them end up going wrong over and over and over again. They label anybody with whom they disagree a conspiracy theorist or a hater, and they tell us what you saw before your very eyes you actually did not see. This is just them being playful. Evidently, so this was official business. Vietnam is apparently where this took place. It was the first stop on an almost week-long tour of Southeast Asia, where he will pitch France as a reliable alternative to the United States and China. We'll also visit Indonesia and Singapore. Now, culturally speaking, I'm not sure how well this will come off and I genuinely mean this, or if it will in the Asian culture, and it may vary depending on the Asian country, whether this will be a sign of nothing whatsoever, where they're like, oh yeah, so what? Or will this be seen as something that brings upon a great deal of disrespect? And just it's certainly not the way that it's not the entrance you want when you are going overseas and you want to be presenting yourself as some sort of strong leader, to have this dominating the headlines. But this crap about, oh no, they were just being playful. Okay. All right. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. All right, everyone, we have a Heroes Breakfast coming up. Trying to get out of this video here. On Friday, we've got our Heroes Breakfast. If you're a veteran, you stop by while we broadcast live at Scramblers, you're going to get free breakfast. That is thanks to Scramblers. The Warrior's Journey, incredible organization, air services, heating, cooling, plumbing, electrical, and Delta Roofing. Someone had texted in about the flight attendant, not only talking about the face shove that appeared to be coming from Macron's wife as they landed in Vietnam. Not only that, but the flight attendant that exits after looks like her left shoulder uniform is torn and her shoulder is bloody. I was trying to, that's what I was looking at, see exactly what that was. It sort of looked like maybe it was part of her outfit, like something that signifies maybe a certain level of service as a flight attendant, but I couldn't tell the video that I was looking at. It was hard to say. Have to really do some further research on that. On that. Kamala Harris reportedly called CNN's Anderson Cooper a mother effer to her colleagues. Well, now, for all of the word salads that we get out of her, that one was pretty clear. I mean, she's pretty straightforward there. If she were that straightforward and articulate in normal circumstances, she might do much better for herself. CNN's Jake Tapper and Axios's Alex Thompson released the new book, Original Sin Tuesday, detailing the mental decline, so forth, so forth, so forth. Harris's comment about Cooper came after he pressed her on Biden's cognitive state immediately after Biden's disastrous debate against President Trump. The book states, quote, "This mother effer doesn't treat me like the vice president of the United States," she said to colleagues. "I thought we were better than that," I guess talking about her relationship with Anderson Cooper. So you're not supposed to question her. You think about, is it any wonder people like Kamala Harris float through promotion after promotion after promotion when it's clear they don't even think they should have to answer obvious questions? I mean, she genuinely believed, apparently, after that disastrous debate that everyone was talking about, that Anderson Cooper wasn't going to ask her about it, to the point that she was indignant that he did and called him an MFer. This is what happens when you get handled with kid gloves and you're handed every position you've ever had. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, welcome to the show. Do you know, according to the book Original Sin, what event occurred that was the final straw that broke the Kamala's back to where she's like, I won't be seen with Biden again?
What?
It was, do you remember when it was out in, I think it was LA after the LA fires, and somebody gave him a MAGA hat and he put it on?
Oh,
remember that?
yeah.
She was evidently more confused than anything. It was like, why would he do that? This is not helpful, is what she said, according to the book. This is not helpful. Well, you missed because you walked out. Also, during the first interview she did with Anderson Cooper after the debate, in which Biden just train wrecked it, and she was mad that Anderson Cooper asked her about it, and she called him a mother effer. Which I think is hilarious because according to the book, it was the most clear and concise thing that I think she's ever said. And if she would, like, whoa, she actually can speak concisely.
I believe it.
Uh-huh. But yeah, that is not helpful, she said, of him putting that hat on. Oh, man alive. I mean, you could probably write numerous books just about some of that stuff. What a campaign to be attached to just for the stories. I mean, if you don't have morals and ethics and you know, so none of that stuff embarrasses you, which apparently none of these people in that camp are embarrassed at all about any of this stuff. It's just run of the mill. It's just, you know, it's just normal daily stuff for us. What a time to be involved in presidential politics and to see some of, I mean, you remember well before the campaign was underway, we used to talk about what the conversations must be like amongst his inner circle whenever he would go out there, when he would say things that they would have to clean up, and how they probably just were on constant pins and needles in freak out mode, worried about what is he going to say this time around. And that was well before the wheels really started coming off the train. Man, what a thing. Can you imagine, like, if you coming home to your spouse at the end of the night, like, how was your day? Well, you thought yesterday I had some great stories to listen to today. The stories? Man. Of course, if you were a real true blue believer, then it probably was.
Yeah, everything's fine.
Yeah, everything's okay. Everything's fine.
Normal.
Yeah, perfectly fine. Everything's fine. I heard Mark Levin playing some sound bites. I think it was Friday. I was driving around. And it was Democrats not simply saying Biden was okay, but going overboard in how world leaders are just in awe of him, that he runs circles around the rest of us. I mean, it was just the overboard nature of the stuff that they were saying. What cartoons. Now, here's a horrible story, and this goes into the bucket of Democrats categorizing certain groups of people as bad, and so they have coming to them what they have coming to them. There was an event in Seattle. It was a Christian rally, and Antifa showed up and decided to start assaulting people. The icing on the cake is that the left-wing mayor blamed the Christians for antagonizing Antifa because, you know, by being conservative and being Christian, see? So they had it coming. So here's a story from Town Hall. Seattle police officers arrested 23 Antifa operatives on Saturday after they physically assaulted people attending a Christian rally in a park. The incident occurred at Cal Anderson Park when violent leftists showed up to demonstrate against the May Day USA tour. The organization is a grassroots, faith-based initiative that advocates against abortion and gender ideology. The group has been holding events in major cities across the United States, quote, as millions of babies are aborted each year, hundreds of thousands of children are trafficked, and the nations of the earth are in crisis. We can no longer sit silent and remain quiet, said founder Jenny Donnelly and Ross Johnson. The Seattle event featured a number of speakers and praise and worship. The violence began shortly after Johnson took the stage, according to WCAX. Antifa organizers claim their objective was to counter the well-funded anti-trans, anti-queer event that is led by the far right, or the far fight Christian activists, according to the Seattle Times. Video footage circulating on social media show Seattle's police working to apprehend those who physically assaulted the rally's attendees. Now, here's what the mayor of Seattle said. When the humanity of trans people and those who have been historically marginalized is questioned, we triumph by demonstrating our values through our words and peaceful protest. We lose our voice when this is disrupted by violence, chaos, and confusion. Anarchists infiltrated the counter-protest group and inspired violence, prompting SPD to make arrests and ask organizers to shut down the event, which they eventually did. While there are broad First Amendment requirements around permitting under events under free speech protections, I'm directing the Parks Department to review all of the circumstances of this application to understand whether there were legal location alternatives or other adjustments that could have been pursued. The Police Department will complete an after-action report of this event, including understanding preparation, crowd management tactics, and review of arrest and citation. In a statement, the mayor would go on to write, Seattle is proud of our reputation as a welcoming, inclusive city for LGBTQ communities, and we stand with our trans neighbors when they face bigotry and injustice. Now, Antifa, in the name of these groups, went and physically attacked Christians for holding a worship service. And according to the mayor of Seattle, well, they had it coming because, they're anti-trans, and he declares he stands on the side of the attackers. He would further state, quote, today's far-right rally was held here for this very reason, to provoke a reaction by promoting beliefs that are inherently opposed to our city's values in the heart of Seattle's most prominent LGBTQ plus neighborhood. This is once again an example of a Democrat in leadership normalizing violence. Instead of demonstrating that everyone, popular or otherwise, has the right to peacefully assemble in Seattle, and condemning violence against anyone by anyone, he declares they had it coming. That this is what they wanted. They wanted the beatdown. And he stands proudly with those who did it. This is sending the message, in this case, conservative Christians, that again, they are bad, they are intolerant, so it can be open season in the city of Seattle. Normalizing violence against those with whom they disagree, becoming increasingly apparent within the Democrat Party. We've got weather coming up here in a moment. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. Latest news update now.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see scattered showers throughout the day, otherwise cloudy skies with a high near 66. Tonight, patchy drizzle with a low around 55. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 74. And looking ahead to Thursday, we'll see a 60% chance of showers with a high near 70.
It seems like there's a bit of a theme, the left normalizing violence in this country, but over the last several days, there have just been numerous instances of this. A popular left-wing Gen Z TikTok creator with millions of followers praised the deadly shooting of the two Israeli diplomats in the U.S. Capitol, calling the gunman a resistant fighter, joining other left-wing organizations that have justified, excused, or openly celebrated the attack. And this is similar to what we saw in this country amongst the left in particular at the assassination of the CEO of the health insurance company. We've in fact gone beyond the simple normalization of violence, but the actual praise of it from some people in the Democrat Party. This was Thursday. Social media personality Guy Christensen, known online as Your Favorite Guy, posted a video voicing support for Ilias Rodriguez, the man accused of killing two Israeli embassy employees during a private event in Washington, D.C. He said in a now deleted clip, "I do not condemn the elimination of the Zionist officials," later urging viewers to support Elias's actions, claiming Israel's diplomats are part of the genocide machine. So that's why he didn't condemn the elimination of the officials. They just are getting bolder and bolder and bolder. And until this is the position we're at in this country, until Democrats start demanding that this stop, and it's not going to stop immediately. If all of the Democrat leaders in unison stood up and told the left wing of their party to stop this, unfortunately, it has been built up to a degree that it isn't going to, that in and of itself isn't going to make a difference. They have bred this for so long and instilled it with DEI and CRT so deeply embedded in the minds of these people, it is going to take a very long time to get this poison out of our system. But as long as Democrats sit on their hands and keep their mouths shut and continue to sit by without condemnation of this behavior from some of the activists within their party, it certainly isn't going to even begin pulling back any. A former Los Angeles deputy mayor tasked with overseeing public safety has agreed to plead guilty to faking an anti-Israel bomb threat on City Hall last year. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Central District of California announced the forthcoming pleas this week after Brian K. Williams, 61, was charged with a single felony count of making an explosives threat, which would carry a 10-year prison term. Prosecutors say Williams sent a text message to Mayor Karen Bass and other high-ranking city officials on October 3rd of 24 that he just received a call from someone who threatened to bomb City Hall, writing it might be in the rotunda. He said in the text message, it turns out that the call actually was made by Williams himself through the Google Voice application on his personal phone, according to prosecutors. Do you know what really does actually surprise me? And it shouldn't, because I know some of these people are stupid. Is that they think that they can do this stuff and not get caught. So he just used a Google Voice application, which I'm guessing is something that disguises your voice, and he thinks that that isn't something that they can figure out. I guess, I don't know if it's just laziness, if it is complete stupidity, but who in their right mind? All you have to do is watch any movie about government surveillance to know that if you do something like this, it's going to be traced back to you. But these people, I don't know, stupid, I guess. And then James Comey calling the Republican Party over the weekend white supremacist adjacent, which is really crazy given the historic level of black men in particular that switched their vote from the Democrat Party to Donald Trump. Comey was interviewed over the weekend by MSNBC host and former Biden White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki. Psaki said one of the things that's happening now is that the Trump administration is testing the system in ways it hasn't been tested before. In the law enforcement sense, do you think there are laws that should be put in place that would help better manage this that aren't in place now? I mean, are we equipped? Is the law enforcement system and the legal system equipped to deal with what we're seeing now? Comey said probably there could be changes at the margins, but in the main, we have the tools. There are cultural impediments to doing this work. Let's say you work in the FBI. You know that one of the two political parties is, let me put it nicely, white supremacist adjacent, at a minimum. And so here you have now the former director of the FBI, which has been credibly accused of calling for an assassination of Donald Trump, putting a target on the backs of all Republicans by painting them as white supremacist. Again, Democrats normalizing hatred for Americans with whom they disagree and normalizing violence against Americans with whom they disagree. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talk a text line text. Hey guys, this is Tim in Springfield. I got on James River at Kansas Expressway. I'm headed towards National, and right after I pass National, all the way over in the left-hand lane, there's an animal lane there, and it looks like a small mountain lion. I thought it was somebody's dog because it was pretty good size, but it has 100% a cat's face. I wonder if anybody else saw it. I don't know if anyone has. If they have, they haven't texted in about it, but yeah, it could very well be. Ozarks elder law, if you don't plan at all, guess who's going to decide where your stuff goes? Government. You haven't decided medical power of attorney? That's almost even worse. You think, I'm fine, I don't need it. I got kids. I mean, right, they're just by default, if something happens to me and decisions have to be made, harvest my organs or whatever, the kids are going to be the ones to make those decisions. No, you haven't laid out that medical power of attorney. Guess who makes the decision? Government. Your own spouse and kids can't speak on your behalf. Oh, but I filled out a will. I went online and downloaded this. I'm just better safe than sorry. 99 out of 100 times, your family is going to be very, very disappointed because they're not going to be able to make those decisions for you. And as hard as sometimes those decisions are, whether it's, how to divvy up your stuff or what steps to take for your medical needs, As difficult as that may be, it's even more difficult to watch some bureaucrat make those decisions for you. So what do? Contact Ozarks Elder Law. Free consultation. And if you've already done this, you think, no, well, I think I've got this will. I downloaded it was something.com or whatever. Bring that with you. And then after that consultation, whatever you need to do in order to make sure you're protected, your family's protected, they'll tell you up front, here's what it'll cost. It's not hourly, it's not quarter hourly. It is a one fee, and you know what it is before you get started. Ozarks Elder Law. You can find them at ozarkselderlaw.com, also ksgf.com under Nick's endorsements.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozark's first meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see scattered showers throughout the day, otherwise cloudy skies with a high near 66. Tonight, patchy drizzle with a low around 55. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 74. And looking ahead to Thursday, we'll see a 60% chance of showers with a high near 70.
CNN's Caitlin Collins had an exchange with RFK Jr. the other day that really demonstrates the difference in perspective between those who believe in utilizing one's own mind in order to gather information, to think things through, to listen to people who provide information and evidence and weigh all of that against what we know, and then those who believe that government should just appoint experts and then we listen to them without any question. And I think it is a genuine belief as long as they are the approved people. So, for example, if it's somebody that Donald Trump approves of because of Trump derangement syndrome, that person should not be listened to, like RFK Jr. But if it's somebody that is appointed by a left-wing Democrat, then you do not question them. Because if you do, you're questioning science or education or whatever their area of expertise is. And here, and you can hear Caitlin Collins, she just really doesn't even understand this concept. Here is the exchange between the two.
I'm saying to you.
But I want to go back to what your comment was about that you said that people should not take your medical advice.
Yeah,
that's your position?
Yeah, absolutely. People should not be taking medical advice. I'm somebody who is not a physician, but they should also be skeptical about any medical advice. They need to do their own research. You're a mom. If you're a mom, you do your own research on your baby carriage, on your baby bottles, on your baby formula.
But they don't have medical degrees, obviously. If you're a mom and you're looking at what science has been tested, they trust their doctors and their pediatricians.
But, one of the responsibilities of living in a democracy where physicians and every sort of expert are subject to all kinds of biases. One of the responsibilities of living in a democracy is to do your own research and to make up your own mind.
So that's your message to moms or to anyone, is to do your own research.
I would say be skeptical of authority. My father told me that when I was a young kid. People in authority lie. And we've seen a lot of that in our country. And people in the media lie. And people need to make their own judgments and be skeptical and maintain their capacity for critical thinking. And that was shut down during COVID. And the media was complicit in that.
Disagree on that last part. Secretary Kennedy, thank you for your time.
Good to meet you, Caitlin.
Disagree on that last part. Oh, really? There's a whole other segment there. It was sometime last year, I was part of this event it was through MSU, in which they had, it was like a 2-day or 3-day sort of conference deal. Brooke Shields ended up being like the keynote speaker for it, but there were a number of us from all over the country that over the 2-day period gave presentations to a internet audience regarding a number of different subject matters. And then there was a period of time where they could ask questions of us. And so each of the two occurrences, I think there were 2 or 3 other people. They're mostly professors in some capacity or another. And one of the subjects was regarding media and trust in the media and how you know what to believe and so forth. And I took the position that RFK Jr. essentially is explaining there that, there's no one place and there's no listing of places that, it does take effort and it takes time. And over time you learn what sources are credible. You learn what sources aren't credible. But like anything, when you step right into it, you're not an expert at it. If you decide you're going to take up golf, now there are going to be some people that just are naturally talented at it. But even at that, there is a lot of practicing. There's a lot of learning. There's a lot of failing and then learning from the failures. And when it comes to knowing what sources you can trust, it's a combination of things. It's a combination of just, again, what is the consistency of credible information from that source, but also is the information they're providing, does it even make sense? Oftentimes there are red flags all over the place with certain stories. And so that was the foundation for my thoughts on the issue. And one of the other guest speakers, who I forget, she was a professor in something again, she disagreed that it was something we should require every individual person to do, that was too much of a burden for people to expect citizens to figure that stuff out for themselves. Now, she didn't go into an explanation as, to whom then makes that decision, but you could tell there was this sense, and it's a sense that comes with being an elite, that there are the few elites and then there are the masses. And it was such a, she didn't mean it to be this way. She was, very nice, had a pleasant personality about her, but she genuinely believed that it was unfair to expect people to think for themselves when it came to what news to believe, what information to believe. I think there was this social media component in there as well. It was just about information, what to believe, what not to believe, and so forth. And so her position was that we need to have sort of authority figures to make those decisions. Now, we didn't go much into depth over that because these were very short little segments that made up these discussions. But it just gives you such an insight into the minds of the elites, and how you could tell her questioning of RFK Jr., that is just a foreign concept. What do you mean parents? What do you mean parents try to figure this stuff out for themselves? They're not equipped to do that. Years ago, I'm just throwing at just some anecdotal bits of interactions that I've had that help me sort of figure out how people are different. And there was a gal who was leaving her job. This was probably 13, 14 years ago. She was somebody that would come on the show for this organization that she worked for. She came on a few times. So really nice gal, got to know her, but she was leaving her position because she was having a baby, and just casually having a conversation about schooling and so forth. And I guess homeschooling must have come up, and she fully explained that she was not equipped to provide what was going to be her first child with the information that he or she needed in order to, start to grow up and to, go through childhood, because she didn't have a degree. Those were the degree was in her verbiage that she used, that she wasn't equipped to know how it was to raise her child in that capacity, because she didn't have a degree, an education degree. Now, how we all managed to exist before people had education degrees, I don't know. And I'm not saying that there aren't benefits to getting a degree in education, and that isn't going to give you certain skill sets that maybe the average person doesn't have. But it's more about this mindset that we are useless unless somebody in authority helps us, unless somebody in authority puts us in a position of authority and deems us to be an expert, and then we're able to make these decisions for ourselves. And it's not only a difference between the approach that we take as human beings in this country, but it really is the difference between what made the United States what it became versus what all other countries were up until that 5,000-year leap, in which you had this culture in this country that, hey, as Americans, you want to try something, have at it. And if it works, awesome. There wasn't some king, there wasn't some overlord in which we waited for permission to do anything. And so you had crazy things like, the Wright brothers. Oh, hey, let's try and fly. Now, today, that seems like it's something that, well, on paper, surely they could have figured out. And isn't that unreasonable? Of course it was unreasonable. Are you out of your mind? A couple of brothers are going to craft these heavy devices, so heavy the two of them couldn't lift it, and they're going to make it go up into the air? But they didn't care what experts had to say. I mean, you think about all of the advances that have occurred in this country, and there's a reason why whether you want to look at the calendar of human existence, tens of thousands of years or millions of years, that really up until a couple of 100 years ago, there wasn't much advancement at all. And then, bam, all of a sudden, overnight, when you look at the human calendar, light years in the blink of an eye. And much of that is because we became this cultural society in which we believed that we could do anything, and that while other people had area of expertise that we could listen to, and we could take their information and utilize that in order to help inform our own opinions, we did not deem certain people experts, and then whatever they said went, and we didn't question it. In fact, quite the opposite. This is one of the reasons that the founders argued and debated the importance of freedom of speech, because of the recognition that that is how you make things better. You have ideas, you have thoughts, you share them with others, you debate them, you prove through intellectual discussion your point, and then somebody comes along with a counterpoint, and you build upon it, build upon it, build upon it. And it was that culture that allowed that massive leap in technology and so many other areas as well, the arts and so forth, to advance so quickly over such a relatively short period of time. And I think for those of us who understand that and get that, it's such an odd thing to hear people say, well, you expect parents to think about that stuff? When it comes to, he used the example of strollers. People get online, they do their research. Yeah, but they're listening to experts. Well, sure. But there's always more than one. And it is the recognition that as human beings, we have brains just like other human beings have brains, and we don't have to, just because of some label slapped upon them by a media that, frankly, has demonstrated it cannot be trusted, it's not credible, but we are supposed to somehow just accept whatever it is that we're told and not question it. That is not how societies advance. In fact, once upon a time, in the context of doctors here, it was very, very common to get a what? Second opinion. This is a common cliche. I want a second opinion. Well, that, in and of itself, demonstrates that even amongst experts, you have differing opinions, hence a second opinion. If there was only one expert opinion and no room for a person to hear numerous opinions and then decide for themselves which opinion makes the most sense to them, then we wouldn't have to get second opinions or third opinions or fourth opinions, because there would only be one official right position. And unfortunately, that is the mindset that so many people have gotten themselves into, that's so backwards. Oh, that person's Fauci's a perfect example of that. It doesn't matter how many times the guy was proven to be wrong. It doesn't matter how many new emails and communications are revealed that show him scheming behind the scenes in order to discredit information that turned out to be true. It doesn't matter how many times he flip-flops on the effectiveness of masks or being 6 feet from someone. But because he is an expert, don't think about that other stuff. Look at how the thinkers were treated during all of COVID when we asked these questions. Like, where did this 6 foot number come from, by the way? Don't question that. The expert said 6 foot. So it just makes sense. That's the way it's supposed to be. Why is it at the local store they're banning me from buying seeds? Don't ask questions. That's what the experts say. That's all that matters. Why is it that, we were told that you could help local hospitals by making masks at home, homemade masks, and donating them, and then we're told, no, it has to be this mask. Then we're told, no, masks don't matter. Oh, don't question. Shh. The experts will let you know what to believe. No society advances that way. Not to mention the left. These are the people that told us we're supposed to listen to Greta, whatever her name is. She was, 14 or 15 at the time? When it came to climate change? So forgive me if your list of experts anyhow proved to be just a bit lacking. Sarah Myers.
Thank you, Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Summer will be here soon. Is your AC ready to handle that heat? If not, no worries, because I want to tell you about Russell and his team over at Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. They have over 35 years experience, and one of my favorite things about the Foreman team is they are not high pressure on sales. I know this to be true because my AC unit is 1 year younger than me, and we've had conversations about repairing versus replacing, and never once have they tried to pressure me into purchasing a new unit. That being said, I will be getting a new unit, and I will be using Foreman. Why? Because they're awesome. That's why. So if it is time for routine maintenance and AC tune-up, give Russell and his team a call today. Now you can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
I want to air some audio. This was a discussion with Original Sin author, CNN host Jake Tapper, Axios national political correspondent, CNN contributor Alex Thompson on Friday's broadcast of PBS's Washington Week with host and the Atlantic editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg. And this is picking up, and of course they're talking about this particular area of discussion is about the lack of successful coverage by the media of Joe Biden's decline.
Yeah, one of the interesting subjects here that's come out in the past week, as you guys are talking about the book, is the role of the media. I don't want to do like an extended media criticism here, especially because I'm not sure it's actually correct. You were doing reporting.
That's true.
In 2023, you were bringing this up. There's a quote that I want to show you. It's actually, it's not just you guys. Ezra Klein was asking questions, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. I want to show you a quote from Mark Leibovich writing in The Atlantic in June of 2022.
100%.
And the article is called Why Biden Shouldn't Run in 2024. Biden is by no means the more eloquent character he was in his younger days. It can be painful to watch him give prepared speeches. His tone can be tentative, and certain sentences can become hopscotching journeys. His aides in the room look visibly nervous at times, and so on. I don't understand how this narrative has developed that no one in the media, or that the media was covering for Biden. I think what might be going on here is a lack of understanding about how reporting works. In order to prove that he's diminished, you have to have people, sources inside telling you this. Give me your thoughts on this question.
Certainly, certainly there were a lot of folks in the conservative media, in the pro-Trump media at Fox and elsewhere, who were running clips of Biden and saying, I think it was one Fox anchor called him Joe Sippy Cup Biden or whatever. They were saying things along those lines. And they were making a bigger deal about doubts about his acuity than it could be said the legacy media was. And I think that's fair for them to say we were making a bigger deal. But as you point out, there is a difference. And I'm not belittling the importance of airing those clips. I aired some of them too. Mm-hmm. There is a difference between airing a clip and saying that's odd, that's unusual, it seems like something's going on. And what Alex and I have been able to do, which is after the election, all those Democrats, we talked to more than 200 sources for this book, almost all of them Democrats, almost all of them after the election, who were telling us what was really going on behind the scenes. And the anecdotes and the concerns that we bring forward in this book is investigative journalism, and that is different from observational punditry.
All right, a few things on this exchange here. The rationalization. This attempt by, well, all of them, but it's led by the Atlantic editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, and I just don't understand this narrative that the media was covering for him. Because, look, I found one article from 2024 that criticizes Biden and says he should drop out. Well, number one article doesn't negate the nonstop daily barrage of disinformation coming from the media about how it's just deep fakes, that this is pro-Trump people that are making this up, it's age discrimination, it's ageism. That doesn't all go away because you found an article from 2024, there was an editorial saying Biden shouldn't run. That editorial itself, however, wasn't saying that he shouldn't run because he clearly is involved in some sort of cover-up of his cognitive disability here and that he isn't really running the show. It just played him off as he's not articulate and, sometimes he hopscotches around. He's got the stutter thing that he's fought his whole life, and so maybe he's not going to be able to win because of that. So it still was in denial as to the truth about what was going on. The argument that, there's a misunderstanding about how reporting works. See, poor you, ignorant fools. See, you just don't understand how it works. And the example that Jake Tapper would use in order to validate Jeffrey Goldberg's position here that we don't understand how journalism works is saying that, hey, listen, investigative journalism means that you ask the people involved, and that's what we did. So now his position is that because prior to the admissions of the cognitive decline here, investigative journalism means you go to Biden people whenever there are accusations that something isn't right with Joe Biden, and when they say that that's not true, well, that's your job. That's what we weren't doing anything so reckless as Fox News, just talking about what we could see before our very eyes. We did the real journalism, and that was we called Biden's campaign manager, and we called some of the people within the Biden White House, and they said, no, he's perfectly fine, so that's true journalism. If that's true journalism, then I guess I clearly have no concept of what journalism is. I kind of thought it was to get to the bottom of the truth, not ask the people who are trying to cover up the truth what the truth is and what it isn't. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed.